Aliens know that humans are harmless, unprovoked, so they let one on the board of their spaceship as a crew member. Some idiot, though, that just because the human doesn't have any weaponry with them, it's safe to provoke them. Captain's log date: Echelon 12th, GSY 5112 location, Galactic Trade Hub Pohir. Today marks the day that our crew member Gran Noirg Valhisifontar Shipu, rank EC, departs our ship and crew. We held a great celebration in the mess hall that lasted well into third shift. As we were docked, I let the crew enjoy themselves after our last cargo run. I should report runs. A conflict erupted in the Unia Nebula, and we were contracted to run supplies in and broken equipment out, which necessitated multiple stops across the sector to deliver it all. The pay was enough that we are finally replacing engine number 4 and upgrading our reactor to the latest model. With Gran departing, we put an ad out for a new crew member. Only one applied, a human by the name of Sid Davies. We've all heard the stories of how unpredictable humans can be, but treat them right and they'll be some of the hardest workers you'd ever encounter. Starting tomorrow, we will welcome Sid Davies as our newest crew member, with the junior rank of UBI. As advertised, upon the successful completion of 5 runs, he will be eligible to gain the rank of EB. Captain's log date: Echelon 13th, GSY 5112 location, Galactic Trade Hub Pohir. We've welcomed Sid Davies to the crew. It appears he has taken galactic culture training as he never bared his teeth in what humans call a smile. It helped ingratiate him to the crew. I look forward to evaluating his performance in the coming months. As the Dondalas is in dry dock for repairs and upgrades, I have given Sid Davies the necessary files to learn about our ship and its crew. Captain's log date: Fanchelon 16th, GSY 5112 location, interstellar space. Sid Davies is proving to be an asset. He familiarized himself with the files provided and appears to have earned the trust of the crew. His work is exemplary, as expected of all crew members. He still maintains property cultural awareness, not wanting to cause an incident. I'm beginning to suspect the stories were just that. Stories, though crew member Aquindar, rank Asi, seems to have bought into the stories more than the others. She is a Mignir, a species from a high-gravity world with a rock-like exoskeleton. Their culture is one to test the grit of new people, intentionally insulting or otherwise provoking them until they reach their breaking point and retaliate in some way. I made sure to highlight this in the files I sent Sid Davies. So far, he handling her provocations far better than I expected of a human. Time will tell. Captain's log date: Fanchelon 28th, GSY 5112 location, Supply Depot, Sorrent. We had a lead that Supply Depot, Sorrent had more contracts than they could fulfill. Looking over the list, we could keep busy for the remainder of the year doing multiple runs between here and the Unia Nebula. Aquindar continues to provoke Sid Davies, refusing to render proper respect to him until he proves his grit. Sid continues to ignore her provocations and continues to perform his duties, though there was an odd anomaly in Aquindar's quarters this morning. Mignir require high temperatures in their quarters to maintain health. For unexplained reasons, the temperature dropped more than 20 jids, not enough to endanger her, but a cause for concern. An investigation turned up no explanation. I ordered a backup circuit installed in case it happens again. Captain's log date: Gretchelin 2nd, GSY 5112 location, navigation point 8875914. Today, we dropped out of FTL for routine maintenance and to orient the ship onto the proper flight path. All system nominal, and the crew continues to perform at or above expectations. Aquindar continues to provoke Sid, who continues to ignore her attempts to upset him. No other crew member has gone this long without retaliation against Aquindar. Either humans have exceptional patience, or Sid is a rare specimen. I want to believe both are true, but I fear that Sid may reach a breaking point soon and retaliate. I fear for his life, for he is squishy and lacks weaponry of any sort. I will continue to monitor the situation. Captain's log date: Gretchelin 9th, GSY 5112 location, FTL. Last night when Aquindar retired for the evening, she found the grav playing in her quarters reversed. She is unharmed, but upset that she had to spend the night sleeping on the ceiling. This time, an investigation showed that a component in the grav system had failed in an unusual manner, reversing the polarity. Installing a new one fixed the issue. Captain's log date, Gretchelin 14th, GSY 5112 location, FTL. We are 2 days out from a staging base just outside of the Unlia Nebula. Aquindar awoke this morning to the environmental controls once again malfunctioning. This time, the humidity in her quarters was set to the maximum setting. Mean-year worlds are ferociously dry worlds. While the humidity posed no threat to Aquindar, it was yet another annoyance. It is odd that these malfunctions are focused on her quarters specifically. I suspect that Sid is behind these malfunctions as retaliation for Aquindar's provocations, but there is no evidence that supports my theory. I asked Sid about it directly, wanting to get to the bottom of the issue. His explanation was sound, how her quarters had the most extreme environment on the ship, and the upgrades we made may have not fully taken into account the stress of her quarters. He offered to work with our engineer, Blinley Esterfway, rank UBI, to install a buffer to prevent any more failures. Captain's log date, Hatchin 20th, GSY 5112 location, Supply Depot Sorrent. The rest of our run was uneventful. No more of failures, and Aquindar seems to have accepted she will never see Sid's grit and has backed off on her provocations. We are loading cargo for the next run. Captain's log date, Indechelon 6th, GSY 5112 location, Supply Depot Sorrent. I render apologies for not maintaining my log regularly. The second run was highly eventful, and I have spent much of my time trying to handle it. This is a warning to my fellow captains. The stories about humans are true. Their cleverness knows no bounds. Do not let a Minyer or anyone else provoke them. On our second run, Aquindar increased her provocations, invoking slurs and began messing with Sid's personal belongings. Sid did all he could to prevent her from doing too much damage, but when she destroyed his supply of stimulant coffee, Sid didn't erupt in anger as expected. He told Aquindar to apologize, and she refused with a few more slurs. Sid only nodded and issued a statement that sent chills throughout my nervous system. Remember, what comes next is only happening because you brought it upon yourself. He never attacked her, never laid a squishy finger on her hardened carapace. No, he somehow programmed the ship's computer to randomly change the gravity of whichever grav plate she was on, so long as she was the only one on it. 1 second, Aquindar would be fine. The next, she could be a pile of rocks on the floor or floating on the ceiling. Once she was caught so off guard, she spent an entire shift helplessly floating in a corridor since she could not reach a bulkhead to propel herself off of. When that ugly bit was cleared out from the ship's computers, his next offense was to cause all the hatches to either not respond to her or to capture her, and not let her move. This only incensed her to more provocations, almost constant. I had to change the duty roster to keep the two from working together. But it was too late. They continued their feud in the off hours. Somehow Sid found out that Mignir are terrified of simple worms. It has to do with a parasite from their home world that nearly wiped out their species. Sid used our fabricators to construct mechanical worms by the thousands and planted them all over the ship. No matter where Aquindar went, these worms would appear. One time a group of them fell upon her head. In her panic to clear them off, she destroyed an entire corridor and nearly broke an emergency airlock in her haste to banish them to the void. Sid was reprimanded with paying for the cost of repairs and was ordered to collect and destroy the worms. I asked Aquindar if she has finally realized Sid's grit, and if so, to acknowledge it and apologize. She refused. Sid visited many similar actions upon Aquindar, being sure to minimize impact on the crew and the ship. Aquindar finally acknowledged Sid's grit after he retaliated against her foray into his quarters, where she destroyed many of his personal belongings. I reprimanded her for her actions by confining her to quarters and docking 1 Shalon's pay, but it was too late. Sid programmed the displays in her quarters to play some choice music from his culture. As my fellow captains know, much of their music is intolerable to many galactic species, but this music was chosen because the harmonies matched the Mignir physiology, causing a resonant frequency within Aquindar's carapace. This caused her to prematurely molt, losing her rock-like exterior. Aquindar finally acknowledged Sid's grit after that, and we had peace. Despite all this, Sid maintained positive relations with the rest of the crew and continued to perform his duties. But I'm afraid I'm going to have to ask him to leave. The crew are terrified of him and threatened to leave the ship if Sid remained, or I hired another human. You have been warned.